Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my Future Fight Vanguard series. This is our second video that we are doing today on Friday the 13th. So, I kind of wish that, I was reviewing, a scary deck, like Dark Irregular or something, but I don't know, maybe I'll do that later today. But yeah, so we are in the process of finishing up our Future Fight Vanguard series. But first, I wanted to say we've reached 800 subscribers, so thank you guys, thank you so much for your support. I really couldn't have done it without you. You guys have been so supporting throughout this whole thing, and I just wanted to thank you for 800 subscribers. But I know you guys didn't come here for all that. You came here to see the Reindeer Future Fight. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to load up our Reindeer deck. Alright. Hopefully this is the right one. Yeah, it seems like it. Okay. So we're flipping our G units here. Alright. So let's start going over the Reindeer deck, starting off with our grade 3s as usual. We have 4 of each Reindeer grade 3. The grade 3s are very essential to each other. So we have 4 Peaceful Voice Reindeer. It has 2 abilities. The first one is a Vanguard ability, and the second one is a Rearguard ability. So depending on where this card is, depending on where its placement is, it has a different skill. So when it's on the Vanguard circle, it has when your drive check reveals a grade 3, and the Reindeer deck is all about checking grade 3 cards. So you have like the grade 2 that you run that counts as a grade 3 when it gets checked, and the grade 1 that counts as the grade 3 when it gets checked. So that way you don't have to run like a lot of grade 3s like Deep Police just to check 3s. Like you just have 1s and 2s that count as 3s. So when this card, when the drive check reveals a grade 3 card, you can choose a card from your hand and put it into the soul. And then if you do, you get to choose one of your rear guards, return it to your hand. And then if there is a card named Velvet Voice Reindeer in your soul or trigger zone, this card gets +1 drive check until the end of the turn. So Velvet Voice Reindeer is our other grade 3. So if you checked this card or this card is in your soul, then you get +1 drive check. So you pretty much want to always be on this reindeer and have this one in your soul. And then the rearguard skill is at the end of the battle that your drive check revealed a card with Reindeer in its name. If this unit is standing, then you can counterblast 2 and move this card to your Vanguard circle, and this card gets -1 drive check. So you can even do like a next stage type of thing where you attack with your Vanguard, stack all the triggers on Peaceful Voice Reindeer, and then if you checked a grade 3 during that drive check of your stride, you could just counterboss 2 and move this card straight to Vanguard circle, and it becomes your new Vanguard, and probably will get 2 drive checks because of its own skill to increase the drive checks. So, but I guess like to be fair, it gets -1 drive like initially, so it has to check a grade 3 card on that like first drive check when you move it to the Vanguard circle, because then it can increase its drive check. So yeah, I guess not bad. I wish it was like separated into 3 different skills where like the third skill was just if you have a Velvet Voice Reindeer in Soul or Trigger Zone, this card gets +1 drive. And then the other like ability was when you check a grade 3 card, you can put a card into your soul and bounce a card. Like, I wish those 2 skills were separated, but they're not. So, yeah, but moving on. We have 4 of our Velvet Voice Reindeer that we were just talking about. So, this card has a Vanguard only ability, and pretty much you only use it to put it in your soul or ride it to Vanguard. So, what this card does is when this unit drive check, when this unit's drive check reveals a grade 3 Bermuda Triangle card, you can choose one of your Bermuda Triangle rear guards and return it to your hand. And then if you do, you choose one Bermuda Triangle from your hand and call it to an open rear guard circle. So what that means is I'm pretty sure the way that it works is when a card goes to your trigger zone, you flip it over like from your deck and it goes to the trigger zone. So I don't think it's counted as in your hand at that point. So I don't think you can check a peaceful voice and then call it to rearguard circle. Um, I would have to check more on that later, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. I'm pretty sure it doesn't count as your hand until like all trigger zone effects resolve, and then it goes to your hand. Um, so, well, actually, maybe it does work like that because Oracle skills go off um, when you check cards. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it bounces the card to your hand, and then you can call a card out. So it allows for multi-attacks, like, and it's like a really old card, so that's why it does this, and that's why it's 10k. Then we have four of the newer cards for Reindeer is Happiness for Ears Marrowville. So what Marrowville does is when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, if you have a Vanguard with Reindeer in its name, which you should always have, you may return this unit to your hand. If you do, you choose up to 2 of your units, and they get plus 3,000 power. So this card's pretty good. Like, it's pretty decent. Nothing extremely special, but it does help you hit some numbers sometimes. Then we run 4 Inspect Sisters Robel. This is one of the cards I was talking about before that counts as a grade 3 in the trigger zone in our deck. So this card has 2 abilities. A continuous ability that activates in the trigger zone only. If you have a Vanguard with a Reindeer in its name, this card gets plus 1 grade. So it gets counted as a grade 3. And then its second ability is when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard. If we have a Vanguard with Reindeer in our name, we can Soul Blast 1 and put this unit on the bottom of the deck. And then we can draw 2 cards and shuffle. So pretty good. Then we have 3 Shyness Laguna Rabra. So Rabra is another one of our Reindeer grade 2s. So when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, if you have a Vanguard with Reindeer in its name, which you should always have, you should Soul Blast 1, or you can Soul Blast 1. And then if you do, you get to choose 1 card from your hand and call it to open rearguard circle. And until the end of the turn, that unit and this unit get plus 2,000 power. So what you can do is you can play a Marrowville or a Robel on one side, and then a Rabra on the other side. And then Marrowville will just require you checking a grade 3, and then it'll bounce itself and use its ability, and then Rabber will go off and Soul Blast 1 and call a card, and both of those cards will get 2,000 power. Or you can use it with Robel and attack your opponent and hope that they let the attack hit, then clear that, and then use Rabra. So, pretty good either way. Then we have 4 Stride Fighters. Obviously, we want a Stride in this deck. We made this like kind of like a Stride version, so it doesn't really focus on just only the grade 3s. They're more like backup plays. We run 4 Image Master Kukori. That is our unflip PG. Our counterbuffs are very important to us. Then we run 4 Dash Sister Rabel. So this is another one of the cards I was talking about that counts as a grade 3. So it has 2 abilities, a continuous ability that activates in the trigger zone only. If you have a Vanguard with Reindeer in its name, this card gets plus 2 grade, which means it's counted as a grade 3 during your drive checks. And then it has another ability on the rearguard circle that says, when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, you can put this unit on the bottom of your deck. And then if you have a Reindeer Vanguard, or sorry, you have to have a Reindeer Vanguard when you check the grade 3. You put this card on the bottom, you draw a card, and then you shuffle your deck, and then you countercharge 1. So it helps you keep your resources in line while also putting more cards back to your deck that count as grade 3 so that you can check more grade 3s. But I think it's better than like D-Robo when they have to check grade 3s because it's actually giving you like cards that you can guard with rather than like actual grade 3s. So that's good. So then we run 2 Piping Hot Suifa. So what Suifa does is all of your, has 2 abilities. A continuous that says all of your Velvet Voice Reindeer in the same column as this unit get plus 1,000 power. So you could play it behind Vanguard Circle and not get the second ability, but you'll get the first ability and it'll make your Vanguard 11k. Or you can play it in like either one of the right or left back rows. And then its second ability will pretty much be usable. And as a rearguard in the back row, it gets an ability. It says when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, if you have a Reindeer Vanguard, which you should always have. Until the end of the battle, this unit gets a skill that says at the end of the battle, move this unit to an open rearguard circle in the same column as it, stand it, and then this unit gets plus 4,000 power. What this means is that you can put Maroville in a column and Suifa in a column, or Robel and Maroville, um, or sorry, Maroville and Suifa, or Suifa and Robel. So what ends up happening is when you check a grade 3, Maroville bounces itself, and then Suifa just boosted, so it attacks for 16, and then when it bounces itself, Suifa moves itself to the front row and gets 4K and stands itself, so it becomes an 11K attacker, which can hit most Vanguards. So even if it can't, then you can use Maroville to give plus 3,000 power to Suifa. So very good card. Like most of the time, you just want to like multi-attack like really hard in this deck. Then we run one colorful smiling frate or frat. This card was our starter. It has two abilities. The first one is Forerunner, meaning you can move it back when you ride a grade 1 on top of it. The second one is at the end of the battle that this unit boosted. If we have a Vanguard with Reindeer in its name, we can counterboss one and put this card into the soul. And then if we choose one, if we do, choose one of your rearguards, return it to your hand, and then choose 2 cards from your hand and call them to separate rearguard circle. So, I don't know. It's kind of like weird. It's like an Olivia in a way, but it's not. Like, I don't know. It just allows for multi-attacks, honestly. It's a decent card. Then we have 12 crit because we want to kill our opponent. This game is this deck is definitely like a very early game centered deck. Like you want to kill your opponent early, or I think you die because you just can't like you can't really like tassel with all the other decks. Or should I say wrestle? Can't really wrestle the other decks in the game into the late game with this deck. It just doesn't work out for you. And so we run 12 crit to try to get it over fast and abuse our strides early. And then we run 4 Happy Rune Sandy, which is our Fighters Collection heal trigger that lets us discard 1, drop 1 when we go into the new Sandy G-Guard right here. Moving into our stride zone, we have 4 of the new Reindeer stride, which is Song of Gracious Reindeer. So what this card does is when your drive check reveals a grade 3 card, if we have a heart card with Reindeer in its name, which we should always have, you can pay the cost, which is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and choose a face down card from your G-Zone with the same name as this unit, and turn it face up. So you basically Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, flip a Song of Gracious Reindeer. And then if you do, you choose one of your rearguards, return it to your hand, and this unit gets plus 3,000 power, plus 1 drive check until the end of the battle. So it gets 4 drive checks. So pretty nuts, if you ask me. Like, pretty good stride. Then we have Olivia. Olivia is our classic multi-attacker Bermuda stride. When it attacks a Vanguard, if the number of cards in our G-Zone is 1 or more, then we can pay the cost, which is Counterblast 1, and flip a Olivia. And then if we do, we get to choose 5 of our rearguards, or up to 5 of our rearguards. If all the chosen units have different card names, we can return them to the hand. And if the number of cards returned is 3 or more, then we can choose up to 2 cards from our hand, call them to 1 in the front row, 1 in the back row, and this unit gets plus 1 critical. So, classic. Nothing to really say about that except for multi-attacks are good. Then we run 2 Perfect Performance Angie in this deck just because we have space. It wasn't because we necessarily use it a lot, but this card is to pretty much counter Link Joker. Other than that, like it can get some pesky things off the field sometimes that are really annoying that you don't want to be there, like Vanguard Gear Cat, or some card that if you attack into it will do something defensively. Like you can just bounce cards to the hand, but I guess the biggest thing that I'd be careful of is giving your opponent more guard shield when you're bouncing cards to their hand using this card. So yeah, what it does is Generation Break 2, Counterblast 2, choose a card from your G-Zone face up, choose any number of cards on any fighter circle other than your Vanguard circles, and return them to the hand. This unit gets plus 5,000 for every card returned to hand, and then if you return 5 or more cards, you draw a card, and if you return 7 or more, this unit gets plus 1 drive check. So, pretty good card. Then we run one of our GB8 in pretty much every Bermuda deck. It's like not that good, but it's not that bad that we don't need to run it. So at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard, we can discard a card, and then if we do, we return all of our rearguards to our hand, and then choose up to 5 cards from your hand and call them a separate rearguard circle, and they get plus 5,000 power. So pretty solid card, allows you for, you know, just classic Bermuda multi-attacks, etc. Then we have 2 Best Sparkle Sandy, one of the best G-Guardians in the game. This is our G-Guardian from the Fighters collection that we got that flips over a G-Guard when it guards. So you flip over a G-Guard by paying the cost, which is just flip over a G-Guard. And then if you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every 2 cards in your hand. And then if you counterboss one, it gets an additional 5,000 shield on top of that. So it can pretty much 3 to pass or no pass most things, depending on what your card usually or what your hand usually is. But it's usually 6 or more, so it's usually not a problem. Then we have one hand-in-hand Leona. What hand-in-hand Leona does is when it's placed on the guard circle, it can choose one of our rear guards and return it to our hand. If we do, we choose a card from our hand, call it to guard circle, and if that unit has the same name as the card returned to your hand using this effect, then that unit gets plus 5,000 shield until the end of the battle. So you can either bounce something that you don't want on the field, maybe you don't want your opponent to destroy it or something, or whatever the reason is, you can return it to your hand and call something else to the guard circle, or you can return a card from your field that you don't want and call it to guard circle so that it can get an extra 5k shield. So pretty good. Then we run one High Society Citron, really to counter like VMAX decks, stuff like that, because we'll call a card to the rear guard circle and then they won't get their skill. So Citron, when this unit is placed on guard circle, choose one grade 1 or greater from your hand and call it to rear guard circle. And if we call a unit, then this unit gets plus 10,000 shield until the end of the battle. So, pretty solid card. Nothing to say about it other than that. Then we have one Sailor's Medley Nausia. So what Nausia does is when it's placed on the guard circle, choose one card from your hand, reveal it, and then if you have a unit with the same grade as the unit that you revealed, then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield until the end of the battle. So, yeah, that was the deck. Like, you guys will see it in action, but it's very early game based. Like, when I said that it was very early game based, like, I'm not kidding. Like, you either, like, kill your opponent in the early game or you just, like, straight lose. Because I don't think the deck's, like, powerful enough to keep up with, like, other quote-unquote real decks. But in our first one, we're playing Kagura. I go first, and I ride, he rides, then attacks for 7. I guard with a 10, and I avoid a crit by doing that. We don't have a grade 3, but we're choosing to just rush using this like little advantage we have. So he rides a 10k vanilla, which kind of sucks, but he attacks our rear guards and gets a crit. So then we take everything, and then we just attack his Vanguard, he guards, and he stays on grade 2, but also crits me. So when he attacks me with the last one, I just PG. We draw into a grade 3. I attack for 15, but we do double crit him. Unfortunately, he was not at 3 damage, so now he is going to kill us, I think. But counterboss 1 and kills my starter, and then he activates Blaze and uses the stand trigger to draw a card to give plus 5,000. And then I kind of thought about whether I would be able to guard all this, and I wouldn't be able to guard all of it. So I really shouldn't even have G-guarded that, to be honest, but I just wanted to keep going just to show that I could survive, I guess. So I draw a card and then I attack him for 10, and it's a definite no pass, and then he goes into Ziegenberg and just attempts to finish out the game pretty much. Or I say attempts, but finishes out the game, I meant to say. So yeah, we take our 6 damage, and that was GG. It's kind of like what I was talking about in the early game. I mean, we also didn't get a grade 3 in that game, but it does go to show still, like, it doesn't, I don't think other decks would just die like that if they don't get a grade 3 for one turn. But loading up Reindeer game 2, we actually do get a 1, 2, and 3 in our hand this time, and we're playing against Gold Paladin. So the Gopalam player goes first. They ride and call backwards. We ride and do the same. We attack for 12, and we check a stride fodder, which is good for us because we want to stride. He attacks for 14, gets a stand trigger, we get a crit. Then we decide to rush, and we attack for 14. And I accidentally checked 2 cards, but yeah, I attack for 14, check nothing, and then I attack for 16. And as you guys can see, I have the early setup going with like Marrowville and Suifa here, like I was talking about when I was going over the deck part of this future fight. So you guys would know what that means when it comes time. So then he's trying to rush us, plays a bunch of cards from his hand, gives us 11 to the Vanguard so that we can block with a 10. Then he gives us 21, we no guard that. He checks no triggers. So I knew that his hand was like pretty much crappy at this point, so I wanted to go for a big turn play. So we played like both cards from our hand, just hoping that we checked a grade 3. Like if we don't check a grade 3, basically like all is for naught. So he guards 16. Then he no guards, and so our first card that we check is Robel, so it is grade 3. So we use the skill of our Vanguard first to counter boss 1, soul boss 1, flip, and then we return a rear guard to our hand. And then he gets 3k in a drive check. We return both of these and give 3k, and then we check a crit, and a crit, and we do crit Vanguard, power rear guard. He takes 3 damage. And then Suifa skill activates, moves itself to the front, and he knew that he couldn't guard 25 and 11. So literally we won just like that, just off of checking a grade 3. So deck is pretty nuts when it wants to be. But when it doesn't want to be, it's pretty crappy. But yeah, moving into game 3. Reindeer game 3. We're playing against Narukami. So my opponent's going first. They ride, and we ride as well, and follow the same movements to attack. We get a critical trigger. He checks a heal and a Shatura. Thankfully, he doesn't have a Shatura, but he decided to just stay on grade 1, which I didn't think is the smartest option, but I didn't even notice that he stayed on grade 1 until I asked. So, yeah, he stayed on grade 1. And I love how he told me I don't have a card to ride, but he had a grade 2, like, right there in his hand. But I just rush him anyways for doing that, like, because it was stupid in my opinion for him to stay on that. But he does check a trigger to save him from my 3rd attack. And then he rides a grade 2 card that he just drew. And the attacks for 14. I no guard, take the damage. And then I ride Peaceful Voice that I just drew, and I attack for 9. And we can get a bunch done in the early game, like especially when you ride a grade 3 first in this deck, like it's really good. So he no guards. Then I check a critical trigger, go crit power, and then I would have checked a grade 3 using Peaceful Song's skill to use everything related. I probably, like, in hindsight, should have attacked with Marrowville first in case I got a grade 3 check, but I didn't want to count on that for sure. But yeah, our opponent just no guards, took 2 damage and literally lost off of that. So, but yeah, those have been our Reindeer games. I hope you guys enjoyed our future fight for the Reindeer deck. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, leave me a comment below letting me know what you thought. Again, thank you guys for 800 subscribers, so appreciative. Make sure to keep up the support by following our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our Patreon if you really enjoy the channel. And with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and this has been a future fight, and I'll see you guys on the next video.